Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel with our guest co-host, Donnie. As soon as I started this video, he jumped up and wanted to be right in the center of attention. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to push him off of the desk here because he is not actually helping with this project. We do have a Donnie and Fluff channel if you want to see cat antics. Anyway, today we are looking at a Commodore 64 computer. Now, if you're vaguely familiar with Commodore 64s, you might wonder, what is this thing here? Well, this was Commodore's luggable 64 model, their entry into the world of portable computers. Not everybody has seen one of these. In fact, I had not seen one of these things, even though, and now Fluff wants to help out with this video. The cats are just very interactive today. They are being very, very helpful with my videos. So I grew up in the 80s and I went through a lot of vintage hand-me-down second-hand computers. People would give me their old computers. When they upgraded to modern stuff like a PC compatible or an Apple, then I would get the weird vintage ones that had kind of gone by the wayside, like Commodore, Tandy, things that weren't really useful anymore. But still, I never saw one of these until probably when I was in my 30s. So this is kind of a rare item for me personally, although I know that they are out there and I know there are other videos about them.
In a world of high technology and ever-changing moods, in a world that's full of make-believe and changing attitudes, are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? 'Cause the Commodore is keeping up with you.
I picked this one up at an estate auction from someone who was really into electronic music, and in fact the same estate sale had two more of these, as well as an array of MIDI stuff, synthesizer stuff, all kinds of musical things that I didn't understand. Now, I was lucky in a way because the other two Commodores went for a fortune. This one I was able to get a little cheaper, and partly that's because it's missing some parts. So it's missing the carry handle here, and it's actually missing the keyboard cable. So it is not a complete unit, but I think we can still make it work. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. They offer customizable printed circuit boards for all of your electronics projects, and they have been super patient with me while they waited for me to finish this project. PCBWay contacted me all the way back in the summer of 2024 and asked if they could sponsor one of my videos. I was really excited about that because I have heard about PCBWay, I have met them out at Open Sauce, and I thought they'd be a really cool sponsor. Even though I don't really know how to use printed circuit boards yet, that's something I'd like to get into, so I'm looking forward to using more of their products in the future. As you'll see in the video, this project took me forever to get the Commodore 64 up and running. I had to replace some internal parts, I had to replace cables, I had to clean things out. We had a bunch of work to do to get this thing operational, and PCBWay was extremely patient. They waited for me until November of 2024 when I said I was done. I asked if they still wanted to do the sponsorship, and they agreed immediately. So that was really cool. Thank you, big thanks to PCBWay for just being very patient with me, even though it took forever to get this going. I've got a few examples of things that PCBWay can offer, and especially related to this computer. So, custom video game cartridges. This one is the 1980s classic Frogger, and you can see this is not just electronics, but this is a piece of art. You can also get custom cartridges like this double-sided one that offers diagnostics. We'll get into that one a little bit later. And then we've got a whole bunch of diagnostic accessories. These are port testing devices, all kinds of little plug-in accessories that let us run tests on the functionality of our computer equipment. Now, as I said, I am not an expert at printed circuit boards, and I would not know how to build any of this stuff myself. Fortunately, PCBWay has a community site where people can upload their projects basically free for anyone to use. So you can go onto PCBWay's website, order a project that someone else has designed, find the parts list for all the accessories that you need, all the resistors, the ICs, the capacitors, all of the integrated electronics that go along with the printed circuit board. You can buy that circuit board made to order. If you are more of a printed circuit board expert and want to design your own printed circuits for vintage computers or embedded computers or just whatever you have in mind for an electronics project, PCBWay can help you turn that design into a physical device, a physical printed circuit board that then you can do whatever you want with. You'll be seeing some of these devices throughout the video as I use some of the cartridges and test devices, and I'll throw some links down in the description to PCBWay's website, to some more information about them and their services. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in designing custom electronics or any of their other services, check out their website, check out the links below, and I think it'll be a great resource for any electronics hobbyist. When I originally bought this, it was also completely filthy, so I'll cut to a little montage of me cleaning it up and testing it for the first time. Alright, so that's what the thing looked like when I got it. It is now a little bit cleaner, and I've gone on eBay and bought some replacement parts for it, namely the keyboard cable. Now, this was really hard to find. Nobody makes these anymore. It's basically a 25-pin DB25 parallel cable. However, it has some pieces missing because a regular DB25 is actually a little too big to fit where the keyboard cable goes. So I found this one from a guy in Italy selling them. It wasn't terribly expensive, but it took forever to ship. I also found some system discs. You'll notice this Commodore 64, unlike the old all-in-one keyboard Commodore 64, this one has a disk drive, floppy disk drive, and Axeman Surplus actually had some Commodore discs. They had a whole bunch of Commodore 128 stuff that they offered to give me, but I don't have a Commodore 128, and they didn't have the main system unit. So I didn't want to take their 128 stuff if somebody else comes along and uses it, but I did take their 64 discs. So we've got those, and then we've got some other stuff that I ordered on eBay, including some interesting cartridges, and we'll get to those in a minute. Now I mentioned cartridges because in addition to the floppy drive, this also has a top-load cartridge port. So this was a weird crossover in the days before software had really standardized. Software used to come in cartridges like video game consoles, like Nintendo cartridges, and then they started transitioning over to floppy disks, then we got the smaller disks, and today of course we have USB. But right around the time this was made, they were going both cartridges and floppy. So that gives us some interesting options for software and peripherals. That goes right here. Now I think to some extent that missing carry handle is supposed to prop the thing up when we use it in desktop mode here. Yeah, that doesn't really work. It's not actually designed to be propped on the keyboard the way the Osborne Portable was, so we'll have to find something else to put underneath it here and prop up the front a little bit. Well, the screen came on and the drive flashed for a minute, but nothing else is happening here. Well, I'm not finding anything obviously wrong in here, which is frustrating because it doesn't help me fix the problem. I was hoping there would just be something obviously loose, like a connector or a daughter board onto the motherboard, but as far as I can find, everything seems to be where it's supposed to be. These cats are just insistent that they want to help me with this project, so they are all over my desk, my chair, my computer. They're all over everything here. Now, one thing I've heard is that some of these chips can overheat, and in the old days, the way you found out which chip was overheating is you would spray a can of that dust stuff on there, and upside down, I guess, so it comes out as ice, or you would take a balloon or a condom with an ice cube in it and put it on each chip and just see which one melted. These days we have thermal cameras, so I don't have to resort to old-timey witchcraft like that. And I'm definitely seeing heat from, I think, most of the right places. All of the chips are hot in the middle, which seems correct. And we've got one here that is hotter than everyone else, right in the center where that red marker is. So I've got a new replacement part for the SX-64 here. So this little guy is the programmable logic array, or PLA chip, and this is apparently the most common failure point on an old Commodore 64. And the symptoms of a failed PLA match what I was seeing before. So we are going to swap this with a new one. And some folks online have come up with a variety of replacements for this, so it might look a little different, but it apparently provides exactly the same functionality as the original. And the new one is quite a bit bigger than the old one, so I'm hoping it will fit in here on the motherboard. Alright, we've got that module jammed into place. Alright, well, fingers crossed, let's see if that changed anything. Alright, so we have the SX-64 basic operating system or loading screen come up here. That is a huge improvement. This thing looks like it is actually working. Not the easiest fix, but not the hardest fix to replace that PLA module. Now, the CRT refresh rate does want to mess with my camera a little bit, so it doesn't actually have these rolling lines in real life. It's just an artifact of pointing the camera at the screen. And if you thought I was bad at screen recording a modern computer, I definitely can't get a screen recorder to work on this thing, so we're stuck with the camera. Let's see if I can remember any basic programming commands. Yeah, a lot of the symbols are in weird places on this keyboard, too. Hey, I can remember basic. Now that we've got it working, let's see if the floppy drive works. Some of the keys are sticky, so I'm pushing the wrong characters, and then, yeah, I seem to have gotten myself into symbols here somehow, and delete's not working. Alright, we have Zork 2 loading, and we've got the introductory text here. I don't know how readable the little screen is going to be on the camera, but it's actually very readable in real life. For being just a 5-inch screen, for being tiny, this is quite usable. Let's try a cartridge. Now, this is an aftermarket cartridge made by somebody online, and this is made with a PCBWay shared project. So this is a PCBWay design that somebody has uploaded and made available to anyone to get it printed at PCBWay. If you already have the ROM chip, if you already have some of these circuits, you can make it yourself. And this really showcases what kinds of stuff you can do with PCB printing. So not only make the cartridge itself, the printed circuit board with all the circuits, but you can do cool artwork like this. So you've got kind of 3 colors to work with. You've got your base color, your white, and then the metallic overlay here, and then you can do additional art with holes like this in the eye of the frog. I think this is really cool. This is a really neat way to leverage printed circuit board technology and make it not just functional, but also pretty. All right, we've got Frogger in the cartridge port, and apparently when there's a cartridge plugged in here, this ROM bypasses the internal system ROM, so it shouldn't load BASIC, it should just go straight to the game. And yeah, there it is. Here is yet another custom cartridge with kind of a, I think, custom ROM that somebody made up, which I believe are utilities or diagnostics for this thing. So let's give this one a try next. Well, let's see what instrument that means. Maybe that's music. Oh, yeah. That looks like some kind of musical thing. It's possible this is trying to output something over a serial port or one of the other interface ports in the back. So, again, I'll have to go out and look this up online to see what is this and what can I do with it. I dug out a few more accessories that should help out this computer. I have a joystick, courtesy of Axeman Surplus, and I did find a screen recording box, or a composite RGB video box. So I've got this plugged into the video port in the back through kind of some hacked together wires. Hopefully it's correct. I stole this from my underwater drone project, my ROV project. It's not being used right now, so hopefully it'll let me record the video output from the Commodore. So we mentioned some of the PCBWay stuff earlier, and actually when I was working on diagnosing the problems with this, I bought another PCBWay community project kit. This is a 2-in-1 test cartridge, so it is a double header cartridge. It's got the contacts on both ends, and this is the diagnostic as well as the dead test carts. As I said, this is another PCBWay community project that somebody put together, and it comes with not only the main cartridge, but all of these plug-in test modules. So we can test the keyboard, we can test the user port, we can test basically all of the expansion ports on the back of the computer with all of these little add-on dongles. So that is a really cool little package. Pretty cheap. I got the thing pre-assembled like this on eBay, so I didn't even have to do any soldering. Now at this point in the video, we've already fixed the Commodore, we replaced that dead PLA chip, but I still want to see what this diagnostic cartridge looks like. So we are going to try the dead test first. Alright, so our dead test is running through the memory, testing the RAM. I'm going to flip my cartridge around and go to the diagnostic side of it. So this does have some extra features. We've got 0 page OK, stack page, screen page, RAM tests, PLA says it is OK, and that is a good sign because we just replaced the PLA. Alright, so one really cool hack with an old cartridge-based computer like this is, since the cartridge basically overrides the internal ROM system, you can put some really interesting ROMs in there, including an entire second computer. So we have here a modern microcontroller, the Teensy version 4.1, embedded onto a cartridge card. So this is, again, just a printed circuit board, like something you can get from PCBWay, with a microcontroller on there, an Ethernet port, USB port, micro SD card, mini USB. We have all kinds of modern interfaces on this card, and then the embedded microcontroller to control it all. To the Commodore 64, this just looks like a cartridge, and it interfaces like regular old 1980s tech, but it has modern tech embedded on it, and we can do things up to and including internet access. We can tell the Commodore 64 that this is a modem for BBS. We can get internet time, we can get programs, ROMs loaded off of USB and other media. This is going to be really fun. Let's try it next. So this cartridge is called the Teensy ROM, and I got it on eBay from SGD Engineering. Oh, look at this. We actually have a Mario Brothers port on here. Oh, okay. This is like an old Mario. So we have Super Mario 64, not the Nintendo 64, but the Commodore 64. And again, the graphics are pretty reasonable on this. I'm really bad at it with the joystick here. Wow, I actually didn't remember that the graphics were this good on the Commodore 64. I think this is supposed to be some kind of fractal graphics thing. Well, that is definitely something that you put on when you're doing crazy 80s drugs. Alright, we've got an Etch-a-Sketch program. Somebody found a way to make a graphics program worse than MS Paint. Well, we've got some graphics on here. Let's see what these are. Hey, that's not bad. That really shows off the graphics capabilities of this thing. Wow, you can even do thermal predator vision. Alright, well, I could get stuck playing the Teensy 64 all day, and that's just the content that it comes with. With the USB drive and that microSD slot, you can put any ROM you want on there. Custom ROMs that you designed, you can put stuff that you find online. This is really cool. This might be my favorite Commodore 64 accessory so far. Alright, I know everyone is just waiting to see this thing go on the internet, so let's give that a shot. We're going to run this terminal application. Alright, so we are now online with a text-based browser, so we can get today's news. Let's see if we can just go to a random URL. I'm going to try to go to the weather website. Yeah, it looks like it is not going to allow us to go there because we don't have permission for HTTPS. This is far too old for HTTPS. Let's try to go to a forum or a bulletin board server. So we're going to try to go over to the Retro Battle Stations bulletin board. That is not working on here. I may have mistyped something. It's actually really hard to see on the little screen here if I've made a typo or not. Alright, let's see if we can use a telnet type command for some of these. Oh, this looks like it's working! We are connected to a bulletin board system. Oh, sweet. Look at this. This is a 1980s style website. Well, bulletin board system, BBS, but still, it looks like a 1980s website. This is fantastic. I love it. Oh man, Wikipedia Commodore 64. Look at that. Let's look up SX-64. And there's the first result is Commodore SX-64. There we go. We can get this thing's Wikipedia entry right on the SX-64. I am far too amused by this. This is great. All right, we've got a little gallery of user-created ASCII art. Always a fun time. So we can go into a chat room. Let's see who's in here. No other user connected. I am the only idiot on the BBS chat, so pretty lonely. Let's just go to games. What do we have for games? Yeah, pretty basic text games. We can go over to BBS News. So we've got CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Fox, Politico, Wired, kind of all of the generic news websites here. So let's go ahead and look at Wired. Let's see what that looks like in text mode. It does not look like much. I don't think the Wired staff have updated this to be Commodore 64 compatible. But the BBC seems like maybe it works. Let's go to top stories. I tried the ChatGPT link, but it looks like that is only for Patreon supporters of this BBS, which I get it, that's fair. I have special content for my Patreon supporters too, so yeah, we just won't try that at the moment here. And I can even go to one of my web servers right here in the house, or technically up on the roof of the garage. This is the Raspberry Pi running Raspberry Noah, so these are upcoming satellite passes. It's a little bit garbled, because again, it's modern HTTPS with style sheets and all that garbage, so does not properly display on a text browser, but still kind of cool that I can connect to one of my local servers. Alright, well, I could continue playing with this just for days. The BBS systems, the websites, the text messages, the telnet stuff, that is fantastic. It is amazing to get an old piece of vintage tech like this onto the internet, onto some of those online services, and yeah, I could be entertained by that literally for days, if not weeks, but we better wrap this video up a little bit and start getting towards the end. I could also stay entertained for days, if not weeks, with old ROMs, stuff loaded onto the teensy ROM system. I could be downloading every game ever made for the Commodore 64, every custom ROM made for the Commodore 64. Anything I could find online will probably fit on that teensy ROM. It does go to show you just how much of a community following something like the Commodore 64 has. When I've looked at other vintage computers like the Osborne 1 or even the Tandy TRS-80 Model 100s, there is not nearly as much software available, not nearly as many ROMs, PC boards, custom add-ons available for some of those systems as there are for the Commodore 64. This is truly a classic, and this is one of the big name classics of vintage computing, vintage gaming, and people have just gone nuts with making things available for this. So this is a really cool system to play around with, especially the SX-64. This is a weird form factor for Commodore 64. It is one I had not seen before, and it is one I am really having fun playing around with. It's really cool to have that built-in screen, and a color screen at that. I believe this was the first portable color computer, so it is one of the very early color laptops out there. Again, a huge thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video, helping me make content with this vintage computer, and for creating the PCBWay Shared Projects community. That is a fantastic resource for fans of vintage technology like this, and it let me find things like this diagnostic cartridge that I would otherwise maybe not be able to find. It let me find and buy things like this very cool Frogger cartridge with the really cool art on top. I love this. This is fantastic. And it gave me a great insight into the world of custom printed circuit boards for projects like this, modern projects. Like I said, everything from 1980s tech all the way up to modern microprocessors and combinations like this little circuit board here that somebody made using a modern microprocessor to interface with old technology. That's the kind of thing you can do when you have access to custom printed circuit board tech and custom design tools to make anything you can think of, far beyond what the original designers of old computers like this ever thought possible, ever even considered as a possibility for their technology. If you liked the Commodore SX-64, you might see more of this in the future. I would like to do some other things with this. It would be fun to do stuff like Meshtastic. It would be fun to do a little bit more with the online services, with the Ethernet services that we have through the teensy-ROM module here. It would be fun to interface this with other technology. Maybe we could get it to talk to some stuff like the Osborne 1, like the Tandy 100s. Maybe I could set up my own BBS here in my basement. I don't know. If you have any ideas for things I could do with the Commodore SX-64, throw them down in the comments below, and maybe we'll do some of that in the future. It just remains to be seen what I have time for and what we come up with. If you want to see more of my excursions into vintage computer hardware and antique technology, check out some of my other videos. Like I said, we have Osbornes, we have Tandys, we have Apple stuff, we have all kinds of old computer junk. We have satellite projects, I have boat projects, I have railroad projects. I do all kinds of things on this channel. I am all over the place with my content, so it's not just retro tech like this, but there is a fair amount of that if that's what you're into. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Thank you to everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.